Hello and welcome to Money Life. This is Sucheta Dalal. We're going to talk about banks and how people have lost money once again. I'll tell you what triggered this off. These days, whenever I go to Twitter, I notice on my timeline there are any number of hashtags from PMC Bank depositors and those who've lost money in the Tier 1 bonds of Yes Bank. They are pleading and asking the government to do something because the COVID lockdown has resulted in them having no money at all. And most of them are livid. They say, it's our hard earned money, carefully saved, that's with the bank. Please give us back our money. So this got me thinking that when the government imposed a hard lockdown on 24th March, they did not even know that there are 14 crore, count the zeros, 14 crore Indians all over the country who had migrated from their home states for work and had been left stranded overnight without a job, without a livelihood, without food. It was NGOs that jumped in the initial days, within the first 2 days, to start giving them food and rations. The first 15 days, the government machinery wasn't even aware of their existence. In fact, even in the Supreme Court, there was a claim that these people, fed up after the first lockdown, weren't even walking on the highways to go back home, because many of them are quoted as having said to the media they would rather die at home than in some other strange state. So, if 14 crore Indians, most of them are vote bank, are faceless and unknown to the government, what is the chance that issues raised by maybe a couple of lakh Indians, upper middle class by and large, or at least in the Indian context, not even middle class, but people who are privileged because they have a bank account. So these people have lost money. They had more than 1 lakh in the bank because up to 1 lakh has been paid. Nobody seems to give a damn about their problem. What is more stupefying is that while money is lost, depositors, investors, savers lose their money, those responsible for these losses just get away. And I'm not talking about a few Rana Kapoors who are arrested and in jail, or the promoters of HDIL. Don't forget, one branch of that family was going to have a holiday in Mahabaleshwar. We are not talking about those. I'm quite certain they're comfortable even in jail. They're able to afford the most expensive lawyers. Let's not discuss them. What about the rank and file that does the bidding, that hid the fraud? Remember, even in PMC Bank, the fraud came to light when finally the guilty conscience of some people got triggered and they wanted to go to the RBI. By then, it was too late for the bank. Why do these people retain their jobs and not lose money? So let's take a look at each of these banks one by one. So let's start with PMC Bank, where depositors have been pointing out to the RBI governor, to the finance minister, that look at the number of people who have died. Look at the fact that we don't have our money, we need it for hospitalization. You have forced us into a lockdown. There is zero response. Now, this is a case where my point is that it could have been revived when it happened. That is about 8 months ago. So two things happen when RBI puts a bank under a moratorium. It appoints a administrator. In this case, we at Money Life and our sister organization Money Life Foundation have pointed out that this is a mediocre administrator with a bad track record in the past when he was appointed as an administrator. I also believe that central bankers who never step out of the ivory tower, who have no experience in banking, are not people who ought to be administrators. We at Money Life Foundation have worked very hard at trying to help PMC Bank depositors. We tried to approach the court as a way to hasten things, not because the RBI and the finance ministry couldn't do anything. We sent a memorandum to the RBI governor, went and met him. We tried and approached other ministers to talk to the Prime Minister's office. Our point was very simple. At that point of time, in spite of the huge hole of over 6,000 crore, there were takers for PMC Bank. There was interest. Now, it is for India and this government, which likes to say that it is capable of taking tough, hard decisions, issuing ordinances in a jiffy, changing rules and circulars almost on a daily basis, they could have done it if they wanted to. So there was interest, but you had central bankers sitting on their high horse, trying to be choosy about who gets to take over this bank. So who would be interested? Someone who didn't have a banking license, So the restrictive thing in the Indian context is that they have to be fit and proper. Maybe some of them would have been foreign investors. It needed quick thinking, quick action, to get an smart, dynamic administrator in place who had contacts across the world. We had actually gone and met people, sought the advice of stalwarts like Deepak Parekh, suggested names to the RBI and said, get going. This is more than 6 months ago, nothing happened. Okay, you needed to choose. Now, is the RBI completely wonderful about choosing who's fit and proper? If you look at the last 25 years when private banks were allowed, more than half the time the RBI has been wrong in its selection. It has been utterly disastrously wrong. It has even been poor in its supervision. So at this point of time, they could have found somebody to take over the bank, kept a hawk-like eye on it, used its supervision well, and ensured that the bank survived. Now, when the RBI puts a bank under an administrator into a zombie state, what it does is that the bank cannot do banking business. The staff is fully employed. In PMC's bank's case, there were 137 branches, core banking, credit card facilities, forex trading, and all these branches were in metros. Bangalore, mainly in Bombay, a few in Delhi. They were so attractive for any potential new buyer. They would have found a buyer if the RBI would have moved off its hind seat and tried and find a solution. But they didn't. Instead, 137 branches are working. The staff is working. The only job they have is recovery, which means that the bank is gobbling up at the rate of 27 crore a month, which is nearly 1 crore a day to keep it alive. Whose money is this? The depositor's money. So the more months that the RBI keeps this bank alive in the zombie state, the less the chances of the depositors getting any money. Nothing happens. The government is not interested. Now let's look at the second set of people who have a hashtag 81 bondholders and their woes. This is the people in Yes Bank. Now there are two kinds of people whose savings were decimated because they held tier 1 bonds. These were sophisticated investors. The second bunch was mutual funds, again sophisticated, but retail investors' money, who were stupid, but who pays the price? Not them, the retail investors. And this is across the board, every retail investor, because the net asset value goes down. Does the government care? No. The third set, which is absolutely, completely innocent, is senior citizens and others, where Yes Bank's relationship managers went and hard sold these bank bonds, telling them you can lock yourself in at 9% interest for 5 years. It's absolutely safe. This is a time when interest on term deposits is going down. So people broke their FDs and put money in these tier 1 bonds. Overnight, the RBI didn't know that they exist, and they have decimated them by writing them down to zero, when the trustees of two mutual funds were pleading with the RBI to convert them into equity at an 80% haircut. All of us know that the price of Yes Bank soared. So even if the bonds were written down to 20%, that value would have gone up because the market value. Look at the stock market. The stock market seems blissfully unaware of the hardships of the lockdown. It's going up. These investors would not have suffered. Who is responsible for this disastrous decision? Now, every banker, you remember that Yes Bank was a public-private bailout. So there was State Bank of India and a bunch of private bankers. I've spoken to many of them. Off the record, they tell me, we kept arguing with the RBI to not let these bondholders down. We were ignored. Where does the buck stop? Obviously, not at the bank, because all the staff has retained their job. Some of those responsible for the decision to missell these bonds retain their job. Nothing happens to them. And innocent savers, senior citizens, people who desperately need money, people who have now probably lost their jobs, they suffer. Does the government care? Not even an acknowledgement. They have been bombarding social media with a hashtag and talking to the government, tagging everybody that matters. There is not even the decency of a response. Now, let me make this point a little more clear when I talk about how people responsible for siding with dubious fraudsters who headed the organization or who looted the bank, like in the case of HDL and Vadavans, they get away. So Let's look at ILFS, and I'm going to read this out to you. So, infrastructure leasing and financial services was the first that went down in 2018. It created a systemic crash. It is partly responsible for all the problems that happened elsewhere, right? Now, ILFS is under a bunch of bureaucrats, retired ones, who have no hurry to resolve it and move away because this is now a second job for them. They're under Uday Kotak, who has limited time to look at it and is doing it partly. These people in their wisdom decided that there are a bunch of key officers who need to be retained. Isn't this hilarious? Because savers lose their money, nobody gives a damn. People who are lucky to have their job and not be in jail need to be incentivized. This is what the IAS officers in charge of ILFS decided. So they decided to offer them an incentive payment, which between 31st March and 4th April, these incentives started being paid out. A few horrified employees emailed me and said, what on earth is going on? And I brought this to the attention of the RBI governor and Mr. Uday Kotak, and on April 7th it was stopped. So it was partly stopped. Some of them have got away with it. Now remember, these are the same bunch who have made a man called Dilip Bhatia the CEO. 2 or 3 forensic reports have repeatedly said how he was completely hand in glove with the 4 or 5, one out of jail, which is former chairman Ravi Patsarthi, 4 others who are in jail. He has been completely with them. No action. In fact, I would like to know whether he was one of the beneficiaries of this incentive. We have a perverse system where people who save are thrown to the wolves on the basis that they are sophisticated. How are they sophisticated? These are people who are senior citizens who ought not to know the risks, who depend on the government, the rating agencies, the trustees of mutual funds, the fund managers who are paid enormous amounts of money and bonuses to take care of their interests. None of these people are punished. People in these scam hit organizations are not punished, and only savers have lost their money. So let me come back to the beginning. If this country forgot that 14 crore migrant workers, the poorest of people who, when you deprived them of their job, wouldn't have food to eat 2 days later, these were saved by NGOs and Good Samaritans in the initial days. If the government forgot about them, was callous about them, was horrific about how it treated them when they wanted to go back, what is the chance that it's going to look at a couple of lakh people who have lost money in the financial system? They don't care. But they need to, because if you want faith in the financial system, if you want the private sector to have some trust left, then you need to pay attention to these people, because you cannot keep decimating people's hard-earned savings. We, that includes me, are people who don't get a pension. We are not the privileged government employees where it doesn't matter what happens, our pension checks are going to come in. We save that money, we pay taxes, and this is the money that is going to be with us for the rest of our lives when, whether COVID happens again or something happens, we need hospitalization, we are being looted on the cost of medical equipment, we pay from those savings. So wake up, government. We may be a small number, but you cannot ignore us. You cannot ignore PMC bank depositors. You cannot ignore the tier 1 bondholders, because it's not about 2 banks. It's about all banks. You need to create trust. Banking and finance is the business of trust. When will you wake up to this? Thank you.